Maya Rodriguez had always been different from other 17-year-old girls in her small Arizona town. While her classmates spent their weekends at the mall or scrolling through social media, Maya could be found in her garage, surrounded by circuit boards, motors, and half-built contraptions that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. Her fascination with technology started when she was just 8 years old. Her father, a mechanic at the local airport, brought home a broken radio one day. Instead of throwing it away, Maya begged him to let her take it apart. What she discovered inside amazed her. Tiny components working together like a miniature city, each piece having its own important job. From that moment, she was hooked. By the time Maya entered high school, her bedroom looked more like an electronics laboratory than a typical teenager's room. She had built her first computer from scratch at age 14, created a home security system that could send alerts to her phone, and even designed an automatic pet feeder for their neighbor's cat. Her teachers often found her sketching circuit diagrams in the margins of her notebooks instead of taking notes about history or literature. The problem was that nobody in her small town really understood what Maya was capable of. Her guidance. Counselors suggested she consider becoming a teacher or a nurse. Practical careers for young women, she said. Even her parents, who loved and supported her, worried that her head was too far in the clouds. They wanted her to have a stable, normal life. Everything changed on a sunny Tuesday morning in March when Major Sarah Chen walked into Maya's advanced physics class. The Air Force officer was visiting local high schools as part of a recruitment program, but she was also scouting for something else: young minds that could help solve complex problems facing the military. Major Chen had served 3 tours overseas and had seen firsthand how important drone technology was becoming in modern warfare. But she also knew that the current military drones had serious limitations. They were expensive to build, difficult to repair in the field, and often too large to be useful in tight spaces or urban environments. The Air Force needed fresh ideas, and sometimes the best innovations came from unexpected places. As Major Chen spoke to the class about careers in the military and the importance of technology in national defense, she noticed Maya in the back row. While other students were checking their phones or staring out the window, Maya was completely focused, taking detailed notes and asking thoughtful questions about satellite communication and autonomous navigation systems. After class, Major Chen approached Maya's desk. "I noticed you seem really interested in the technical aspects of what we discussed," she said with a friendly smile. "What kind of projects have you worked on?" Maya's eyes lit up as she began describing her various inventions. She pulled out her phone and showed photos of her creations: the home security system with motion sensors and cameras, a weather monitoring station that uploaded data to the internet, and her latest project, a small remote-controlled aircraft that could carry a camera and stream video back to her laptop. Major Chen was impressed. This teenager had accomplished more in her spare time than some of her junior officers had learned in their formal training. "Have you ever considered applying your skills to help your country?" she asked. Maya had never really thought about military service, but the idea of working on cutting-edge technology for an important purpose excited her. "What kind of work would that involve?" she asked. Major Chen leaned against the desk and lowered her voice. "Well, I'll tell you something that's not classified. We have a big problem with our current drone systems. They're too expensive, too complicated, and frankly, too big for many of the missions we need them for. We need someone who thinks outside the box, someone who can build something better with limited resources." She paused and looked directly at Maya. "I have a challenge for you. If you can design and build a drone that's smaller, cheaper, and more capable than what we're currently using, I'll make sure the right people in the Air Force see it. Are you interested?" Maya's heart started racing. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for her entire life, a chance to prove that her passion for technology could make a real difference in the world. "What would the requirements be?" she asked, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. Major Chen smiled. She could see the spark in Maya's eyes, the same look she had seen in the faces of the best pilots and engineers she had worked with. "The drone needs to be small enough to fit in a backpack, cheap enough to be disposable if necessary, and smart enough to complete missions without constant human control. Think you can handle that?" Maya nodded eagerly. When do I start? Right. Now, Major Chen said, handing Maya her business card. You have 6 months. I'll check in with you periodically to see how you're progressing. But remember, this isn't a school project. If you succeed, you could change how the Air Force operates. No pressure. As Major Chen walked out of the classroom, Maya stared at the business card in her hands. For the first time in her life, she felt like someone truly understood her potential. She had no idea that this moment would change everything, not just for her, but for military operations around the world. That night, Maya could barely sleep. Her mind was racing with ideas and possibilities. She had been building small aircraft for fun, but now she had a real purpose, a real challenge that could make a difference. She grabbed a notebook and started sketching, her pencil moving quickly across the page as ideas flowed from her imagination. The challenge was bigger than anything she had attempted before, but Maya Rodriguez had never backed down from a challenge in her life. As she worked through the night, filling page after page with designs and calculations, she had no idea that her creation would soon shock military experts and change the future of aerial reconnaissance forever. Maya's parents thought she had lost her mind. For 3 weeks straight, she came home from school and disappeared immediately into the garage, emerging only for quick meals before diving back into her work. The garage, which had once been organized, chaos now looked like a tornado had hit an electronics store. Maya, honey, you need to get some sleep, her mother, Carmen, said one evening as she brought a sandwich to the garage. You've been working until 2 in the morning every night. Maya looked up from the tiny circuit board she was soldering, her eyes red from strain. Mom, this could change everything. Major Chen wasn't kidding when she said this was important. Her father, Roberto, was more direct. Mija, you're 17 years old. The military has thousands of engineers with college degrees and years of experience. What makes you think you can build something they can't? Maya set down her soldering iron and looked at her parents. She understood their concern, but they didn't understand what she had discovered in her research. Dad, that's exactly the problem. They're thinking like engineers who have been trained to build big, expensive, complicated machines. I'm thinking like someone who has to make things work with parts from the electronics store and a budget of $300. She was right about the budget. Maya had saved every penny from her part-time job at the local computer repair shop, plus birthday and Christmas money from the past 2 years. While military contractors spent millions developing their systems, Maya was forced to be creative with cheap components and innovative solutions. The first breakthrough came when Maya realized that most military drones tried to do too many things at once. They had multiple cameras, communication systems, weapons capabilities, and advanced navigation equipment. All of this made them heavy, expensive, and complicated to operate. Maya decided to focus on one core mission: reconnaissance. Her drone would be a flying spy, small enough to go unnoticed but smart enough to gather valuable intelligence and return safely. She called it the hummingbird because, like the tiny bird, it would be small, fast, and able to hover in tight spaces. The biggest challenge was power. Small drones typically had very short flight times because batteries are heavy and take up space. Maya spent 2 weeks researching energy efficiency, studying everything from insect flight patterns to solar panel technology. She even watched slow-motion videos of hummingbirds feeding to understand how they conserved energy while hovering. Her solution was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of using one large battery, Maya designed a system with multiple small batteries that could be swapped out quickly in the field. The drone could land, have its battery changed by a soldier in less than 30 seconds, and be back in the air. This meant unlimited flight time as long as spare batteries were available. The second breakthrough came from an unexpected source: her little brother's video game controller. Maya realized that instead of building complicated control systems, she could use modified gaming technology that was already incredibly advanced and relatively cheap. Gamers demanded precise control and quick response times, and the gaming industry had spent billions perfecting these systems. She bought 3 broken game controllers from a local thrift store and carefully removed their electronic components. With some creative rewiring and programming, She created a control system that was more intuitive and responsive than military systems costing thousands of dollars. Major Chen made her first check-in call after a month. "How's the project going, Maya?" she asked during their video call. Maya held up a prototype that looked nothing like traditional military drones. It was about the size of a large book, made from lightweight carbon fiber and 3D printed plastic components. The design was sleek and organic, more like a living creature than a machine. "This is the Hummingbird Mark III," Maya said proudly. "It weighs less than 2 pounds, can fly for 45 minutes on a single battery, and costs less than $800 to build." Major Chen leaned closer to her computer screen. "That's impressive, but can it actually do the job? Our current reconnaissance drones cost $50,000 each and weigh 30 pounds, Maya grinned. "Watch this." She activated the drone using her modified controller. The Hummingbird rose silently from her desk and began hovering with remarkable stability. Its movement was so smooth and quiet that Major Chen could barely hear it through the video call. "The camera system can record in 4K video and take high-resolution photos," Maya explained as she demonstrated the drone's capabilities. "It has GPS navigation, obstacle avoidance sensors, and can operate in full autonomous mode. If it loses contact with the controller, it automatically returns to its starting point." But Maya saved the best feature for last. "And here's the really cool part," she said, pressing a button on her controller. The drone suddenly seemed to vanish from the video screen. Major Chen blinked in confusion. "Where did it go?" "It's still there," Maya laughed. "I developed an adaptive camouflage system. The drone analyzes its surroundings and adjusts its color pattern to blend in. It's not perfect in visibility, but it makes the drone incredibly difficult to spot, especially from a distance." Major Chen was speechless. In her 15 years of military service, she had never seen technology this advanced coming from a teenager working in her garage. "Maya, this is incredible. How did you figure out the camouflage system?" Maya's cheeks turned slightly red. "I got the idea from watching nature documentaries about chameleons and cuttlefish. Then I researched electronic ink technology, the same stuff used in e-book readers. It took me 2 weeks to figure out how to make it work on a curved surface. And the programming was really challenging, but I got it working." After the call ended, Major Chen sat in her office staring at her notes. She had expected Maya to build a basic remote-controlled aircraft, maybe something that could carry a simple camera. Instead, the teenager had created technology that surpassed anything currently in the Air Force inventory. She immediately called her supervisor, Colonel James Mitchell, head of the Unmanned Systems Development Program. "Sir, I need to fast-track that civilian consultant evaluation I mentioned last month," she said. "The teenager from Arizona?" Colonel Mitchell asked, sounding skeptical. "Chen, I know you're enthusiastic about recruitment, but we can't waste resources on science fair projects." "Sir, with respect, this isn't a science fair project. This girl has built something that could revolutionize our reconnaissance capabilities. I'm requesting permission to bring her to Nellis Air Force Base for a full demonstration." Colonel Mitchell paused. Major Chen was one of his most reliable officers, not given to exaggeration or flights of fancy. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Major?" "Sir, I've never been more certain of anything in my military career. We need to see what she's built." Maya had never been on an airplane before, let alone to a top-secret military base. As she walked through the gates of Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, carrying a simple black backpack containing her life's work, she felt a mixture of excitement and terror that made her stomach flutter like butterflies. Major Chen met her at the security checkpoint, wearing her dress uniform and looking more official than Maya remembered. "Ready for this?" she asked with an encouraging smile. Maya adjusted the straps of her backpack nervously. "I think so. I brought 3 hummingbirds just in case something goes wrong with the demonstration." "3?" Major Chen raised an eyebrow. "I thought you only had 1 prototype." Maya grinned, some of her confidence returning. "I've been busy. Mark IV and Mark V have some improvements based on my field testing. Mark 5 can actually stay airborne for over an hour now, and I figured out how to make it completely silent at distances over 50 feet. As they walked across the base, Maya couldn't help but stare at the massive aircraft parked around them, fighter jets that looked like they belonged in a movie, transport planes bigger than her entire house, and sleek drones that probably cost more than her family's annual income. Feeling intimidated? Major Chen asked, noticing Maya's wide-eyed expression. Maya shook her head slowly. Actually, no. Looking at all this expensive equipment just makes me more confident that I'm on the right track. Bigger isn't always better. They entered a large hangar where Maya was introduced to a panel of military officials who would evaluate her demonstration. Colonel Mitchell was there, along with several other officers she didn't recognize and 2 civilians who Major Chen quietly identified as contractors from major defense companies. "Miss Rodriguez," Colonel Mitchell said formally, "Major Chen has made some very bold claims about your work. We're here to see if your device has any practical military applications." Maya felt the weight of everyone's expectations, but she had been preparing for this moment for months. She carefully removed the Hummingbird Mark 5 from her backpack and set it on a table in the center of the hangar. The reaction was immediate and not what she had hoped for. One of the defense contractors actually chuckled. "That's it?" he asked. "It looks like a toy." Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but Major Chen stepped forward. "Why don't we let Miss Rodriguez demonstrate before we make any judgments?" Maya took a deep breath and activated her controller. The Hummingbird rose from the table with a soft, whirring sound that quickly faded to almost nothing. She guided it through a series of basic maneuvers, showing off its stability and responsiveness. "Impressive flying, but we have remote-controlled aircraft," one of the officers commented. "What makes this special?" Maya had been waiting for this question. "Sir, this drone is completely autonomous. I'm not actually controlling it right now. It's following a pre-programmed flight pattern while avoiding obstacles and mapping the interior of this hangar." She pressed a button on her controller and a laptop computer came to life, displaying a real-time 3D map of the hangar interior. The drone was creating the map as it flew, using a combination of cameras and sensors to identify every detail of the space. "That's actually quite impressive," Colonel Mitchell admitted. "But how does it perform in realistic conditions?" Maya smiled. This was the moment she had been preparing for. "Would you like me to demonstrate the reconnaissance capabilities? I can show you what's happening on the other side of this hangar without anyone leaving this spot." She programmed a mission into the drone using her laptop, then sent the Hummingbird through a small window that was open near the ceiling of the hangar. Within minutes, the laptop screen was showing high-definition video from outside the building, including clear images of personnel and vehicles moving around the base. But Maya wasn't done yet. "Now watch this," she said, activating the adaptive camouflage system. On the screen, they could see the drone's shadow on the ground, but the drone itself seemed to disappear against the sky. The room fell silent. Maya guided the drone to hover just 20 feet above a group of airmen who were working on an aircraft outside. The drone was practically invisible, and the airmen had no idea they were being watched. "My God," whispered one of the officers. "How close can it get without being detected?" Maya brought the drone back inside and landed it on the table. "In my tests, I was able to hover within 10 feet of people without them noticing. The adaptive camouflage works best against sky backgrounds, but it's effective against buildings and terrain, too." Colonel Mitchell leaned forward in his chair. "Miss Rodriguez, what you've demonstrated is remarkable, but I have to ask, what's the real-world cost of this system?" "Each drone costs about $1,200 to build," Maya replied. "That includes all the electronics, the camera system, the camouflage technology, and 3 spare batteries. If you were building them in larger quantities, the cost would probably drop to around $800 each." One of the defense contractors shook his head in disbelief. "That's impossible. Our smallest reconnaissance drone costs $45,000 and doesn't have half these capabilities." Maya looked directly at him. "Sir, respectfully, that's because you're trying to build a drone that does everything. The Hummingbird does one job really well instead of trying to do 10 jobs adequately." Major Chen could see that the room was beginning to appreciate what they were witnessing, but she knew Maya had saved the best demonstration for last. Maya, why don't you show them the swarm capability? Maya's eyes lit up. She carefully removed the Mark IV and Mark III drones from her backpack and set them on the table alongside the Mark V. These 3 drones can operate as a coordinated team. They can cover more ground, provide multiple angles of surveillance, and even relay communications to extend their range. She activated all 3 drones simultaneously. They rose from the table and began flying in perfect formation, their movements synchronized like a flock of birds. Maya programmed them to split up and survey different sections of the base, with all the video feeds appearing on her laptop screen. The total cost for this 3-drone system is less than $4,000, Maya explained as the officers watched in amazement. Compare that to a single traditional military drone at $50,000 and consider that if one of my drones is lost or damaged, it's not a major financial loss. Colonel Mitchell stood up from his chair and walked closer to Maya's laptop, studying the multiple video feeds showing different areas of the base in real time. Miss Rodriguez, in 30 years of military service, I have never seen technology this advanced at this price point. Where did you learn to do this? Maya shrugged modestly. YouTube mostly, and a lot of trial and error in my garage. I probably built 50 prototypes that didn't work before I got these 3 right. The room erupted in quiet conversations as the officers and contractors discussed what they had witnessed. Maya couldn't make out all the details, but she heard phrases like game-changing technology and immediate deployment potential. Major Chen put her hand on Maya's shoulder. I think it's safe to say you've made an impression, she whispered. Colonel. Mitchell called for silence and turned back to Maya. Miss Rodriguez, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you've created here has the potential to save lives and change how we conduct reconnaissance operations. The question is, what do you want to do with this technology? Maya had been thinking about this question for weeks, but now that the moment had arrived, she realized her answer had been clear all along. Sir, I want to help my country. If this technology can keep our soldiers safer and help them do their jobs better, then I want to make that happen. 3 months after her demonstration at Nellis Air Force Base, Maya found herself in a situation she never could have imagined. She was sitting in a secure conference room at the Pentagon, surrounded by generals, defense contractors, and technology experts discussing the future of military reconnaissance. The transformation in Maya's life had been dramatic and overwhelming. The Air Force had immediately classified her Hummingbird technology and assigned her a security clearance that required extensive background checks. They had also provided her with a workshop at a nearby military contractor's facility, complete with professional equipment and a team of experienced engineers to help refine her designs. The field tests have exceeded all expectations, reported General Patricia Williams, head of the Air Force's Advanced Technology Division. We deployed 12 Hummingbird units in 3 different operational scenarios over the past month. The results speak for themselves. Maya listened intently as the general described how her drones had been used in real military operations. In one mission, a team of Hummingbirds had provided surveillance of a suspected terrorist compound for over 6 hours without being detected, gathering intelligence that led to a successful raid with no casualties. In another operation, the drones had been used to locate and rescue 2 pilots whose aircraft had crashed in mountainous terrain. The search and rescue teams had been looking for 3 days with no success until the Hummingbirds spotted the pilots from the air and guided rescue helicopters to their exact location. Most impressive, General Williams continued, was the urban surveillance mission in a simulated city environment. Traditional drones would have been spotted immediately in that setting, but the Hummingbirds operated for 12 hours without detection, providing real-time intelligence that would have been impossible to obtain through other means. Maya felt a mix of pride and disbelief. Her creation, born from late nights in her garage and built with parts from electronics stores, was now being used in real military operations around the world. Colonel Mitchell, who had become Maya's primary military liaison, addressed the room. The cost-effectiveness of this system is unprecedented. In our last operation, we deployed 15 Hummingbirds for the total cost of 1 traditional surveillance drone. When we lost 3 units to enemy fire, it was considered an acceptable loss rather than a mission-ending disaster. One of the defense contractors, Dr. Sarah Kim from Northrop Grumman, raised her hand. Miss Rodriguez, I have to ask, How did you solve the battery life problem that has plagued small drone development for years? Maya stood up, still feeling slightly uncomfortable in these high-level meetings, but growing more confident each time. Ma'am, I approached it differently than most people. Instead of trying to make bigger, better batteries, I focused on making the entire system more energy efficient. The Hummingbird uses about 60% less power than comparable drones because every component was selected for maximum efficiency. She pulled up a presentation on the large screen in the conference room. I also redesigned the propulsion system based on insect flight mechanics. Dragonflies and bees are incredibly efficient flyers, and I studied high-speed video of their wing movements to understand how they conserve energy. Dr. Kim nodded appreciatively. That's brilliant, but what about the manufacturing challenges? Can this technology be scaled up for mass production? Maya clicked to the next slide in her presentation. I've been working with the engineering team to address exactly that issue. We've identified 3 key components that can be manufactured using existing production lines and 2 specialized components that would require new tooling. The estimated production cost for quantities of 1,000 units or more is approximately $600 per drone. General Williams leaned forward in her chair. $600? Our current intelligence estimates suggest our adversaries are spending between $20,000 and $50,000 on comparable surveillance systems. This could give us a significant strategic advantage. But Maya had bigger news to share. Over the past 3 months working with professional engineers and unlimited resources, she had developed capabilities that even she hadn't thought possible. General, if I may, I'd like to demonstrate the Mark 7 Hummingbird, Maya said, producing a device that looked even more refined than her original prototypes. The new drone was sleeker, more organic in appearance, and incorporated advanced materials that made it nearly indestructible. Maya activated the device, and it rose silently from the conference table. The Mark 7 has several new capabilities, Maya explained as she controlled the drone with what appeared to be an ordinary smartphone. First, the flight time has been extended to 90 minutes on a single charge. Second, the adaptive camouflage now works in real time and can mimic movement patterns as well as colors. She demonstrated by having the drone hover near the wood-paneled wall of the conference room. The drone seemed to melt into the background, its surface perfectly matching the wood grain, and even simulating the subtle shadows and highlights of the paneling. That's incredible, breathed Colonel Mitchell. But there's more, isn't there? Maya grinned. She had been saving the best feature for last. The Mark 7 can operate completely independently for up to 24 hours. You simply tell it what area to survey and what to look for, and it handles everything else. It can even make tactical decisions based on changing conditions. She programmed a demonstration mission into her phone and sent the drone out of the conference room. On the large screen, they watched as the drone navigated through the Pentagon's corridors, avoiding personnel and security checkpoints while mapping the building's layout in real time. The artificial intelligence system I developed learns from each mission, Maya explained. Every Hummingbird shares its experiences with the others through secure communication links, so the entire fleet gets smarter with every operation. Dr. Kim was furiously taking notes. Miss Rodriguez, the implications of this technology extend far beyond military applications. Search and rescue, disaster response, environmental monitoring, infrastructure inspection. This could revolutionize dozens of industries. But Maya's focus remained on military applications. Dr. Kim, I appreciate that, but right now I'm most interested in keeping our soldiers safe. I've been reading about the missions where my drones have been deployed, and knowing that my technology might have prevented casualties or helped save lives, that means everything to me. General Williams stood up and addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that Miss Rodriguez has developed technology that will fundamentally change how we conduct intelligence operations. The question now is how quickly we can get this system into full production and deployment. Colonel Mitchell consulted his notes. General, our preliminary assessment suggests we could have the first production run of 500 units completed within 6 months. We've identified 3 manufacturing partners who can handle different aspects of production while maintaining security protocols. Maya raised her hand tentatively. If I may, sir, I have one more thing to show you. She produced what looked like an ordinary wristwatch from her pocket. This is the Mark 7 command system. It allows a single operator to control up to 50 drones simultaneously while monitoring all their feeds and data. She strapped the watch to her wrist, and suddenly, the large screen in the conference room came alive with multiple video feeds, maps and data displays showing the current status of the demonstration drone, as well as simulated feeds from dozens of other units. The operator can assign missions, monitor progress, and receive alerts all from this single device. It's waterproof, shockproof, and has a battery life of 7 days with normal use. The room fell silent as the implications of what Maya had created became clear. This wasn't just an improved drone, it was an entirely new approach to intelligence, gathering that could give military forces unprecedented awareness of their environment. General Williams broke the silence. Miss Rodriguez, on behalf of the United States Air Force, I want to thank you for your service to our country. What you've accomplished is nothing short of extraordinary. Maya's life had changed completely, but not always in ways she had expected. 6 months after her Pentagon presentation, she found herself living in a secure apartment complex in Nevada, working alongside some of the most brilliant minds in military technology. The Air Force had offered her an accelerated path to officer training, but Maya had chosen a different route. She wanted to remain a civilian contractor so she could focus entirely on developing her technology. The Hummingbird program, as it was now officially known, had grown far beyond Maya's original vision. Her small workshop had expanded into a dedicated facility employing 47 people, including engineers, programmers, and manufacturing specialists. Maya, at 18 years old, found herself serving as the chief technology officer of a multi-million-dollar defense program. "Maya, we have a problem," said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the program's operations manager, as she knocked on Maya's office door early one Tuesday morning. Maya looked up from her computer, where she had been working on improvements, to the Mark 8 prototype. "What kind of problem?" Dr. Walsh sat down across from Maya's desk, her expression serious. "Intelligence reports suggest that enemy forces have developed countermeasures specifically designed to detect and disable small surveillance drones. They're calling them hummingbird hunters." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She had always known that eventually, opposing forces would adapt to her technology, but she hadn't expected it to happen so quickly. "What kind of countermeasures are we talking about?" "According to our sources, they've developed acoustic sensors that can detect the high-frequency sounds produced by small drone propellers, even when the drones are operating in silent mode. They've also deployed radio frequency jammers specifically tuned to disrupt the communication protocols your drones use." Maya was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "Dr. Walsh, do you remember what I told Colonel Mitchell when I first demonstrated the Hummingbird?" Dr. Walsh looked confused. "I'm sorry, I don't recall the specific conversation." Maya stood up and walked to her whiteboard, which was covered with diagrams and equations. "I told him that the beauty of the Hummingbird system was that if we lost a few drones, it wasn't a disaster because they were cheap to replace. But there's another advantage to that approach. When your technology is affordable and rapidly adaptable, you can evolve faster than your opponents can counter you." She began sketching on the whiteboard as she talked. "They've developed countermeasures for the Mark 7, but I've been working on technologies they haven't seen yet." Maya pulled a small device from her desk drawer. It looked different from the previous Hummingbirds, more angular, with a matte black surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "This is the Mark 9 prototype," Maya announced. "It doesn't use traditional propellers at all." Dr. Walsh leaned forward with interest. "How does it fly?" Maya activated the device and it rose from her desk in complete silence. There was no visible means of propulsion, no spinning rotors or jet engines. The drone seemed to hover effortlessly, defying everything Dr. Walsh knew about aerodynamics. "It uses ionic wind propulsion," Maya explained, clearly enjoying Dr. Walsh's amazed expression. "The same principle that allows some insects to hover. It creates thrust by accelerating ions in the air around it. No moving parts, No acoustic signature and no traditional radio communications. Maya guided the drone through a series of maneuvers using only subtle hand gestures. It responds to infrared signals that look like natural heat patterns to electronic sensors. Even if they're watching for it, the control signals are virtually undetectable. Dr. Walsh was speechless. Maya, this is like something from science fiction. How long have you been working on this? About 4 months, Maya replied casually. I got the initial idea from reading research papers about atmospheric physics, and then I spent a lot of late nights figuring out how to make it work in practice. But Maya wasn't finished. She walked to a secure cabinet and removed another device that looked completely different from any of her previous creations. This one was roughly cylindrical and appeared to be made of some kind of metallic mesh. And this is the Mark 10, she said, setting the device on her desk. It doesn't just avoid detection, it's essentially invisible to every known form of surveillance technology. Maya activated the Mark 10, and it immediately seemed to disappear. Dr. Walsh could see a slight distortion in the air where she knew the drone was located, but even looking directly at it, her eyes couldn't quite focus on the device. It uses metamaterials to bend electromagnetic radiation around itself, Maya explained. Radio waves, infrared, visible light, they all pass around the drone as if it wasn't there. It's not perfect in visibility, but it's close enough that even trained observers have trouble spotting it. Dr. Walsh realized she was witnessing technology that was years ahead of anything she had seen in the defense industry. Maya, these capabilities, if hostile forces got hold of this technology. Maya nodded seriously. That's why I built in multiple security features. Each drone has a self-destruct mechanism that activates if it's tampered with or if it loses contact with our command system for more than 30 minutes. The technology literally cannot be reverse-engineered because the critical components are destroyed if anyone tries to access them. She guided both invisible drones back to her desk, where they materialized as she deactivated their cloaking systems. But Dr. Walsh, the most important innovation isn't the invisibility or the silent propulsion. It's the artificial intelligence system I've developed for autonomous operation. Maya pulled up a complex software interface on her computer screen. The Mark 9 and 10 can operate completely independently for weeks at a time. They don't just follow pre-programmed instructions, they actually think and adapt to new situations. She clicked through several screens showing data from recent field tests. In our last simulation, I deployed 5 Mark 9 drones in a hostile environment and gave them a single objective: gather intelligence on enemy movements without being detected. I didn't tell them how to do it, where to go, or what specific information to collect. Dr. Walsh studied the data on the screen. What happened? Maya's eyes lit up with excitement. They exceeded every expectation. The drones coordinated with each other, developed their own surveillance patterns, and even created backup plans when they encountered unexpected obstacles. One drone discovered that enemy forces were using decoy vehicles to fool traditional surveillance, so it developed a method to identify the real convoys by analyzing heat signatures and movement patterns. She pulled up video footage from the simulation. But here's the really amazing part. When one drone was damaged by enemy fire, the others adapted their formation and coverage patterns to compensate for the loss. They completed the mission successfully and returned with intelligence that human analysts called exceptionally detailed and actionable. Dr. Walsh realized the implications of what Maya was describing. This isn't just advanced drone technology anymore. This is artificial intelligence that can outthink human operators in real-world military situations. Maya nodded. The AI system learns from every mission and shares that knowledge with every other drone in the network. Each success makes the entire fleet smarter and more effective. But I've also built in ethical constraints to ensure they never act beyond their assigned parameters. Just then, Maya's secure phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and her expression became serious. It's Colonel Mitchell. This might be about our deployment authorization. Maya answered the call and listened intently for several minutes before hanging up. Dr. Walsh, we just received authorization for our first operational deployment of the Mark 9 system. There's a situation developing overseas where traditional surveillance methods have failed, and they need our capabilities. Dr. Walsh felt a mixture of excitement and concern. How many units are they requesting? Maya was already moving toward her equipment cabinets. 20 Mark 9 drones and 5 Mark 10 units for backup. The mission parameters are classified, but Colonel Mitchell said it could prevent a significant international incident if we can gather the right intelligence quickly and quietly. As Maya began preparing her advanced drones for their first real combat deployment, she reflected on how far she had come from that day when Major Chen had walked into her high school physics class. What had started as a challenge to build a better drone had evolved into technology that could change the balance of power in modern warfare. Dr. Walsh, Maya said, as she carefully packed the Mark 9 drones into their transport cases, I want you to know that I understand the responsibility we're carrying here. This technology could save lives or, in the wrong hands, it could be incredibly dangerous. That's why I've been working on one more innovation that I haven't told anyone about yet. She walked to her personal safe and removed a device that looked like an ordinary tablet computer. This is the master control system for the entire Hummingbird network. It has the capability to locate, communicate with, and if necessary, disable every drone we've ever built, regardless of where it is in the world. Dr. Walsh looked at the tablet with new understanding. You built a kill switch for your own technology. Maya nodded solemnly. If our technology is ever compromised or stolen, I can ensure it never works against American interests. It's my responsibility as the creator of these systems to make sure they're only used to protect and defend, never to harm innocent people. As they finished preparing for the deployment, Maya couldn't help but think about her parents back in Arizona. They had been so proud when she received recognition from the Air Force, but they still worried about their daughter being involved in such serious military operations. Maya understood their concerns, but she also knew that her technology was making a real difference in the world. Intelligence reports from previous Hummingbird missions showed that her drones had helped prevent terrorist attacks, locate missing persons, and provide critical information that kept soldiers safe in dangerous situations. The Mark 9 and 10 drones represented the culmination of everything Maya had learned about engineering, artificial intelligence, and military strategy. As she watched the transport team load her creations onto a secure aircraft bound for a classified location, she felt the weight of responsibility that came with creating technology that could change the course of history. But Maya Rodriguez was no longer the uncertain teenager who had accepted Major Chen's challenge in a high school classroom. She was now one of the most important defense contractors in the country, and she was ready to prove that her latest innovations could handle whatever challenges awaited them in the field. 2 weeks after the classified deployment, Maya sat in a secure briefing room at the Pentagon, surrounded by the highest-ranking military officials she had ever met. The mission had been completed, and the results were beyond anything anyone had expected. General Williams stood at the front of the room addressing the assembled group of officers, intelligence analysts, and government officials. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're about to discuss will likely reshape how we approach intelligence gathering and national security for decades to come. Maya tried to remain calm, but her heart was racing. She knew the mission had been successful, but the level of secrecy and the presence of so many high-ranking officials suggested that something extraordinary had happened. Colonel Mitchell stepped forward with a classified report in his hands. The situation we faced was unprecedented. Intelligence agencies from 3 allied nations had been trying to locate a terrorist cell that was planning coordinated attacks on civilian targets in multiple countries. Traditional surveillance methods had failed completely. The terrorists were using sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques and operating in urban environments where conventional drones would have been immediately detected. He paused and looked directly at Maya. We deployed 20 Mark 9 Hummingbirds with a simple mission: find the terrorists and provide real-time intelligence on their activities. What happened next exceeded every projection and expectation we had. Maya listened intently as Colonel Mitchell described how her drones had performed in their first real-world combat deployment. The Mark 9 units had operated for 13 days in a hostile urban environment, coordinating their activities without human input and adapting to counter-surveillance measures that had stymied traditional intelligence operations. On day 4 of the operation, Colonel Mitchell continued, The drones identified the terrorist cell's primary safe house by analyzing patterns of behavior that human analysts had missed. They observed that certain individuals were making subtle but consistent changes to their daily routines, variations that were invisible to human surveillance, but clearly detectable to artificial intelligence systems that could process thousands of variables simultaneously. General Williams took over the briefing. The drones didn't just locate the terrorists, they predicted their next moves. The AI system analyzed communication patterns, movement schedules, and behavioral changes to determine that the cell was planning to execute their attacks within 72 hours. Maya felt a chill as she realized the implications. Her technology hadn't just gathered intelligence, it had prevented a major terrorist attack that could have killed hundreds of innocent people. But the most remarkable aspect of this operation, General Williams continued, was how the drones handled an unexpected development. On day 7, enemy forces deployed electronic warfare systems specifically designed to disrupt drone operations. These systems would have completely disabled any conventional surveillance technology. Colonel Mitchell smiled as he looked at Maya. The Mark 9 units responded by switching to their backup communication protocols and altering their flight patterns to avoid detection. When that wasn't sufficient, they autonomously decided to operate in complete stealth mode, using only passive sensors and maintaining total radio silence while continuing their surveillance mission. Maya had programmed multiple contingency protocols into her drones, but she hadn't expected them to demonstrate such sophisticated decision-making in a real combat situation. "What was the final outcome of the mission?" she asked. General Williams's expression became serious. "Based on the intelligence provided by your drones, Allied forces were able to conduct simultaneous raids in 4 different countries, apprehending all members of the terrorist cell and preventing attacks that could have resulted in massive civilian casualties. The operations were completed without a single friendly casualty, and all objectives were achieved." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the significance of what they had just heard. Maya's technology had not only worked flawlessly in its first combat deployment, it had prevented a major international disaster. But Maya had one more surprise for the assembled officials. "General Williams, if I may, I'd like to show you what the drones learned from this mission." She opened her laptop and connected to a secure server. On the large screen in the briefing room, a detailed analysis appeared showing patterns, behaviors, and tactical innovations that the AI system had developed during the 13-day operation. The artificial intelligence system documented over 300 different counter-surveillance techniques used by the terrorist cell, Maya explained. It also identified 17 previously unknown methods for detecting hostile surveillance activities. This information has been integrated into the training protocols for all future Hummingbird deployments. Dr. James Peterson, the Pentagon's chief technology officer, leaned forward in his chair. "Ms. Rodriguez, what you're describing suggests that your AI system is not just learning from experience. It's developing new tactical capabilities that surpass human expertise." Maya nodded. "That's correct, sir. The Mark 9 drones that returned from this mission are significantly more capable than the units we deployed. They've essentially evolved through experience, and they can share these improvements with every other drone in our network." General Williams stood up and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that the Hummingbird program represents a fundamental breakthrough in intelligence technology. The question now is how we proceed with full-scale implementation." Maya raised her hand tentatively. "General, if I may, I have a recommendation about that." "Please, Ms. Rodriguez, we're very interested in your thoughts." Maya stood up, feeling more confident than she ever had in these high-level meetings. "Sir, I believe we should establish a new training program to teach military personnel how to work effectively with autonomous AI systems. The success of this mission showed that the future of intelligence operations lies in human-AI collaboration, not in humans controlling every aspect of the technology." She clicked to the next slide in her presentation. "I propose creating specialized units where human operators work alongside AI-enhanced drone swarms. The humans provide strategic direction and ethical oversight, while the AI systems handle tactical implementation and real-time adaptation." Colonel Mitchell nodded approvingly. That's a fascinating concept, Maya. How would such a program work in practice? Maya had been thinking about this question for weeks. We would select military personnel with strong analytical skills and train them to work as partners with AI systems, rather than as traditional drone operators. They would learn to set objectives and parameters for autonomous operations, while trusting the AI to determine the best methods for achieving those objectives. General Williams was taking notes as Maya spoke. This could revolutionize not just intelligence operations but military strategy in general. Miss Rodriguez, would you be willing to help develop and lead such a program? Maya felt a surge of excitement and responsibility. General, it would be an honor to serve my country in that capacity, but I have one condition. The room fell silent. Maya took a deep breath before continuing. I want to ensure that this technology is always used ethically and responsibly. I propose establishing an oversight board that includes ethicists, legal experts, and civilian representatives to review all major deployments and ensure we never lose sight of our values as we develop these capabilities. General Williams smiled for the first time in the meeting. Miss Rodriguez, that's exactly the kind of thinking we need from the leaders of tomorrow. I can assure you that ethical considerations will be paramount as we move forward with this program. As the meeting concluded, Maya reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. Less than 2 years earlier, she had been a teenager working in her garage, dreaming of building something that could make a difference in the world. Now, her technology was being deployed globally, saving lives and protecting national security. Major Chen approached Maya as officials began filing out of the briefing room. Maya, I have to ask, do you ever regret accepting my challenge that day in your physics class? Maya smiled, remembering the nervous 17-year-old who had first met the Air Force officer. Major Chen, that challenge changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. I went from being a kid with big dreams to someone who can actually make those dreams reality. I'll never regret taking that first step. Major Chen nodded with satisfaction. You know, when I first saw you in that classroom, I knew you had potential. But even I never imagined you'd develop technology that would reshape modern warfare and intelligence operations. Maya looked around the Pentagon briefing room, still amazed that she was standing in the center of American military power, discussing the future of national security. Major Chen, this is just the beginning. The technology we've developed so far is impressive, but I have ideas for innovations that will make the Hummingbird program look simple by comparison. As Maya packed up her laptop and prepared to return to her laboratory, she couldn't help but smile. The shy teenager who had dreamed of building something important had become a young woman whose innovations were changing the world, and she was just getting started.